The state can once again carry out the death penalty, and state officials say they are ready to get things going again.
Bradley Kramer has a closer look at this.
With the support of the governor, Louisiana's Attorney General Liz Murrill signaled the state is ready to resume executions. The legislature approved the use of nitrogen gas in executions last year after Alabama used the same method on 3 people in 2024.
We have, I think, 10 people right now that are on death row awaiting different decisions from different courts. And this process has taken, in these cases for these victims' families, 20 to 25 and plus years.
The last execution in Louisiana happened in 2010. East Baton Rouge District Attorney Hiller Moore says the pause in carrying out the death penalty also put justice for the families of victims on hold.
Surely for them it's going to be much more of a closure than they had with the jury verdict finding them guilty. I'm sure there are people on the other side who feel just the opposite.
One of those people is Senior Staff Attorney Samantha Kennedy at the Promise of Justice Initiative.
It made me feel that it is really cruel and nonsensical for our state to want to commit murder and have a state-sanctioned murder.
District attorneys around the state are reportedly moving to obtain death warrants in various death row cases. But Kennedy says in some cases, the inmates have not exhausted all legal options.
The governor has called on all district attorneys to seek execution warrants. That is a flagrant violation of the constitutional rights of individuals on death row. They have appeals processes that are constitutionally protected.
The process in Texas is around 10 years at the most. In Louisiana, we're at 25. It just seems that we allow a lot of shell petitions and a lot of stalled petitions that don't go anywhere. And then all of a sudden it gets some life and then goes up and down the legal ladder for forever.
Moore says death penalty cases are a lifetime of work for the appellate section, but he says he views it as necessary in the most egregious cases. Kennedy disagrees and says they'll keep fighting for the death penalty to end. Riley Kramer, WAFB 9 News.
Louisiana's first execution in 15 years is now set for next month, and we could actually see 2 executions back to back. It's also the first time these death row inmates will die by nitrogen gas. Gabriela Mercurio is here with us tonight with more on the signed death warrants. Gabby.
Hey, good evening, Greg. That first death sentence is for this man here, Christopher Stepolado. His execution is set for March 17th, more than 30 years after his sentencing. Stepolado was sentenced to die before the beating and scalding death of his 6-year-old stepson in Mansfield in 1992. At 81-year-old, he is the oldest person on death row in Louisiana. His attorney told the Louisiana Illuminator that his client's failing health makes carrying out a death sentence pointless, saying he's a debilitated old man suffering from serious medical ailments and believes he should live out his few remaining days in prison. However, a new execution date was issued after Governor Jeff Landry announced the state will move forward with execution since the approval of using nitrogen gas as a way to carry out those executions. Sepulveda is not the only one with a death date. Jesse Hoffman, who kidnapped, raped, and murdered a 28-year-old in St. Tammany back in 1996, is also scheduled to die a day after Sepulveda. The state attorney general says both of these inmates have exhausted all their appeals, Greg.
All right, Gabby, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, Governor Jeff Landry announced today the sentences of death row inmates in our state will be carried out after 15 years of not carrying out the death penalty. Louisiana First News' Michelle Masson has the details.
I just know that it's a really tough issue, and that it's almost like an issue where there's no right and there's no wrong.
Baton Rouge resident Megan King says her religion prevents her from believing in the death penalty, and she believes people can redeem themselves from rock bottom.
Today we can honor these families and remove the hurdles so that justice may be served for the victims.
However, State Senator Caleb Kleinpeter of Port Allen sees it differently, and this hotly contested issue is now seeing a resurgence in support, with Governor Landry saying the Department of Public Safety and Corrections has finalized and implemented an updated protocol allowing capital punishment in our state.
I think we can do better. I think the death penalty is one of the biggest stains on us as a society.
Landry says the convicts will be put to death using a gas mask pumping nitrogen into their lungs instead of oxygen. And the move passed with bipartisan approval in our state legislature. Attorney General Liz Murrell stated, "In Louisiana, we have the death penalty and we intend to use it. Those sentenced to death have been convicted by a jury of their peers for the most heinous and barbaric crimes imaginable. These are the worst of the worst." Governor Landry and I are committed to moving this process forward to finally get justice for the victims. I look forward to each judge upholding their statutory duty to execute these death warrants according to the law. The families of these victims have waited long enough for justice, and Louisiana will put them first. Meanwhile, people like King maintain their stance on forgiveness.
I'm pro-life, and so it's hard for me to be pro-life and for the death penalty.
In Baton Rouge, Michelle Masson, Louisiana First News.
Developing tonight, we now know the name of the first inmate on death row scheduled to be executed in Louisiana in 15 years. On Monday, Governor Jeff Landry announced capital punishment will be carried out again under some new protocols. This afternoon, DeSoto Parish scheduled the execution of 81-year-old Christopher Sepulvado for March 17th. He's been on death row for more than 30 years. Another execution was scheduled for March 19th, but was dismissed by a judge in Jefferson Parish. The Attorney General Liz Murrell hopes the courts will not stand in the way of future dates.
And so I do not expect to have any problems with the courts of appeal on using the method or carrying out these executions. There are a number of individuals who have already exhausted all of their state and federal appellate rights, and they're eligible now to be put to death.
Sepulvado's attorney released a statement tonight saying, quote, "There is no conceivable reason why justice might be served by executing Chris instead of letting him live out his few remaining days in prison."